welcome everyone, especially nice Adam, to Pump and Dumping 24K, our Horology Forum 2020, which this year is digital. Thank you for joining us from all around the globe, literally. And we're here for Pump and Dumping 24K, a panel about brands and retailers unofficially selling luxury on the gray market to salvage duds. Okay, so it's a pretty controversial panel, but it's very relevant. No one likes to address this panel straight on, but we have to do. You have to. Here at the Horology Forum, we must discuss what's happening, and this is very relevant. So whether you're a collector or a seller, whatever you are, a player in the market, this is a topic that we want to hear about from you all. And the way we're going to go about this panel is that I, as the devil's advocate, I will ask you questions. And now the questions are very benign. However, pending the way you respond, they could turn into a trap. So it all depends on you, on how you answer, how straightforward you answer me. And you can discuss, like, it's not a sequence where each person has to answer. It's very, anyone can pitch in however they want and address each other's points as well. You can catch each other out too, even though that's my job. But I will just commence, and let's take it from there. So here we go. Question number 1. Have you ever put products on the gray market?
Okay. Well, first of all, since I'm not a dealer, I can say no. But I can say, though, that I've had certain watches maybe that I purchased and wasn't what I wanted because it was something that might get me something better down the road, and then, shuffled it on. And it's still part of that process, which kind of sucks, but also the industry kind of doesn't have a choice. But is it more on the consumer side? Yes, maybe. But on a professional side, it's not in my purview. But let's see who it is.
I can categorically say I've never done that. So.
God damn it.
Can't really argue with that. Okay.
I will. Sorry.
Yeah, John.
Sorry. I will be the one who says that I have seen it done, and a long time ago, seen it done, and a long time ago, a company that I have worked for has not only done it, but I've seen a company pretty much destroy its reputation by doing it.
That's the danger.
It is a huge danger. And the grey market, if you're selling things that you're selling through retail and you're selling them through the grey market, suddenly you're undercutting your own market, and you can easily destroy a product. And if you're not careful, you can destroy your whole brand. So I've seen a company, and I obviously can't say which company it is, but they destroyed themselves, and they were bought out by a multinational shortly afterwards. But it was something that they did, and they thought it was the only way that they had to get out of a financial hole, and it just created a bigger one for them.
I don't know whether this qualifies or not, but in some auctions, you can see that there are watches that came directly from the dealer or from a retailer that bought it from the dealer, that was stuck with it and was purposely getting it out because he or she, I don't know who the retailer was, but couldn't get rid of that watch on the normal retail, and so they just put it through an auction site.
Yeah, it happens, absolutely. And it's one of those things that I think it used to happen a lot more. Now the controls by the manufacturers is much more stringent. They keep a good eye on what's being sold. But there were certainly times in the past where if you imagine that you're a retailer, you have to buy a certain amount of product, and at the end of the year you haven't sold it. So
yeah, I really feel like you get forced into a corner there. I don't know that there's anyone that's to blame beyond manufacturers that are pushing product. I mean, let's be honest. You have to buy the pieces that they know they can't move just to get the pieces that you know your customers want. And you need to do that because you have to maintain the relationships with your customers, i.e. giving them the watches that they want. But then at the end of the year, when you're starting to look at the numbers, you realize that you've paid XXX for these pieces that you just simply can't move. What are you supposed to do? And yet, when you do what you have to do, you can be penalized for it if you get caught. And like you said, the brands now are really watching this. I think in the past, it was a lot easier to get away with this. And now, and even then, when I say get away with this, I don't like saying that because it was really a necessity. Frankly, it was just sort of how business was done. And now, you know, you're the bad guy. But I did what you asked me to do. I got the pieces that you knew you couldn't move so I could get the pieces that I need to do to maintain my relationships. But now I'm the guy being, you know, raked over the coals. So I don't think there's anyone really to blame, but I think the manufacturers have to kind of look at what's going on there. Are you making too many pieces? And then if you have watches that you know ultimately can't move, I think that's something like they have to eat that.
I think there are certain companies, and even back then there were certain companies that would do buybacks. So at the end of the year, they would buy it back for the amount that had been paid for it, or a small amount less. In just as a way of saying, okay, look, we appreciate the fact that you are doing good business for us, and we're willing to take this back. But then, what do they do with those objects? That's the interesting thing.
Well, and there is an interesting part of that too.
Yeah.
I won't go into.
I mean, I was in manufacturer as well, and I know of a company. It wasn't my company, but I know one company that had produced a group of gold watches that was basically, it was the group of gold watches was never going to be able to be marketed because it had been made too expensively. So that it was not something that they were going to be able to sell. So in actual fact, what they did is they sat on those watches, and they sat on them for about 5 years, and the price of gold went up so much that they dumped them for the gold price, and they actually made a profit on those pieces.
That doesn't surprise me.
Other ways around this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Next question, because I want to be able to ask you all of them. So, what do you do with, and if it's not applicable, what do you think should be done with stock that won't sell? And when I say stock, it could be anything from art to even cars, Mr. Gargash, or if you don't mind, Shehab, because I have maybe I can move forward. But yeah, cars or watches, whatever, stock that will not sell.
May I take the lead on that? I think stock that doesn't sell has to be cleared. I mean, that's very natural. It has to be cleared. Now, there is a difference, though. A gray market, by definition, is about appreciating inventory, not depreciating inventory. So inventory that depreciates, i.e. a normal model car, or in this case, a normal watch that is not sought after, not a special this thing or that thing, has to be cleared, especially if they are model specific. A car is like, I always say, like a crate of fruit. After a while, it rots. So once the model year goes away, that car is actually rotten in our hand, and it never regains its value. Of course, you go into supercars, it's a different story. You go into rare cars, different story. Or like the example of the gold watches a while back here, if I wait long enough, it may become a classic and appreciate in value. I'll probably be dead by then. So, so I truly believe that clearance is part of the product cycle. The part of it that is the exception is appreciating product, i.e. the high-end or rare product that houses create from time to time. Those are a different story altogether, because clearing those is obviously disadvantageous to whoever owns it.
I'd like to chime in on this. Shehab is right, and in terms of cars, you are 100% correct, because every model year matters. But in terms of watches, again, depending what type of model, some models are year on year will not change. So whether you have it for a year or 2 or 3, I don't see any reason why you can't sell it. And let's face it, I mean, people's tastes change. And if any of you have this watch, please forgive me. I just can't stand it as a watch. But everyone and his dog wouldn't touch the Nautilus for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it became in fashion. And it's not a bad watch. It's actually it's a very pretty watch. It's well designed, and it really was nice. Is it a wow watch? Not really. It's a nice one, but is it a wow watch? No. And then for those who couldn't afford, because they couldn't find it, because of the scarcity of finding a Nautilus, they went for its, how should I put it, the ugly sister, the Aquanaut.
Aquanaut.
Which,
yep.
For the love of God, I can't figure out why anyone would want to buy this watch, other than the fact of saying that I couldn't get a Nautilus, so I got an Aquanaut. All of a sudden, it's now hot potatoes. Good luck in trying to get one at a reasonable price. So I think even if the dealer is stuck with a watch, I think Rolex takes about 10 years before they change the model. So you have some time, and really no one's going to ask, is this a 2019 watch? Is this a 2020 2020 watch? Is it? It's not going to be asked so much. So I don't know if the dealer necessarily has to say, I want to get rid of it, unless it just means that his money is stuck in that watch and he can't go out and buy new stock. Then in that case, I understand why he or she would want to start moving it. But if that's not the case, having it for a year or 2 or 3 is really not going to have much of a difference. Not going to be much of a difference.
Yeah, I know, agreed. And I have to say, everything you just said about the Nautilus and the Aquanaut are things I've said for years. And if anything, how hot the watch has become has sort of turned me off to it a little bit. But that is a piece, which again, it doesn't matter now. I think anything that says Patek at this point is hot fire. It's the same with Rolex. It's the same with certain Audemars. There are pieces that we know are going to be the gold standard no matter what. And I always tell people, like a lot of people come to me saying, well, what I want to invest in a watch. And first thing I tell you is get real estate. Buy the watch you like and then wear it. If it's worth more down the road, that's fantastic. But when you're coming at it from a professional standpoint, again, like I said, not a lot of people can afford to sit on that product because they have that money invested in that. And then every year there are new pieces coming out. And so you have to continually shuffle that collection. And I think you find yourself in between a rock and a hard place. And that's where the necessary evil that is the gray market comes in. Like you said, it doesn't matter if you wait a year, 2 years, 10 years, there's certain pieces that's just where they are. So unless it's those brands I just mentioned, the majority of the market, unless we're talking about very specific limited editions, is going to depreciate. And that's just the nature of the beast. But as a dealer, as an authorized dealer, and I really feel like these individuals are in kind of the worst position right now, especially with COVID, with the virus, losing the foot traffic that they kind of depended on too. You're really stuck because there are only a handful of brands that you can depend upon to just move instantly. And we all know that with Rolex, it's very rigid, difficult. They're going to give you what they want to give you. You can't just put your order in and say, well, I just want a bunch of Submariners and throw in a handful of sea dwellers and maybe give me like 10 Daytonas. But I want half white dial, half black. You know what? Maybe make it 6 white dials. That's never going to happen. So in order for you to maintain that relationship, you have to get the pieces that you can't sell. And that's where we get into that gray area. And Rolex, if the second they find out you've moved one piece under the table or whatever, then you lose them. So what do? You can't discount the watches. You can't move them on the side. And so that's where I have an issue. And I know that brands have to protect their resale value because that's sort of the brand equity that they're building up. But as mentioned before, do a buyback. You know, be the bigger person here because you're the one who decided these were the watches that should be made. And maybe your crystal ball didn't show you exactly what was, well, that's your risk. You took that risk. But instead, what's been happening is they shunt that risk onto the people who are really supporting them, the dealer network, and then they penalize them when they move it along. And so I have an issue with that. I'm kind of big on fair play, but I understand both sides. But I'm always rooting for the little guy because I am the little guy. So, you know.
I think an interesting point here is that the pieces that are difficult to sell are probably, and this is historically borne out, the pieces that are going to be valuable in the future. So the Paul Newmans, the Patek Philippe World Time, all the Nautilus was not an easy seller. All these watches
pointed out,
easy sellers in their time. So if you're a canny retailer, just stick them in a drawer for 20 years, give them to your son to sell them on, and he'll make a fortune.
So you're saying just keep a box full of Audemars code 1159s on the side and just wait. Oh, I just saw that. Oh. I like the new dials. I have to go on record as saying that, but it's interesting. I think some people are trying to play that game, but I think as retailers, they don't always have that option. You know, I have the option to go out, let's just say right now, and buy a code 1159 and probably get a deal on it. Maybe not. I don't know. And then I've made that decision. I bought that one watch that I can sit on for 5 years, 10 years. Maybe when I die, my son finds it, and all of a sudden these are, you know, like a Milgauss, you know, from whenever. But the retailers, you know, again, they can't do that because it's a business that's constantly churning, which is why I say, yeah, it's a business I wouldn't wish it on anybody at this point. I mean, there's a few people I'd wish it on, but I'm not going to name them. But it's tough. And I have a lot of friends who are people I reached out to before this panel. You know, some that worked in, you know, bigger chains, some that have kind of mom and pop shops about, you know, the system, and especially the mom and pop shops who really depend on the relationships that they have with their clients, just find themselves, you know, continually being screwed over. And it's amazing to me. You know, I can cite examples. I won't say the brands, but where, you know, you had to invest in, you know, the signage and the positioning and all of this stuff. Only a year later to have the brand come and decide, you know what, we're going to go in-house with all this stuff. So we're yanking it and we're going to put our own boutiques together. And so you've invested that money and then you've lost it all, but you still have the product that you have to move. And how do you sustain that without the gray market? So it comes back to something I said before. It's a necessary evil, but I really feel like it's a creation of the brands, and that they're the ones that really need to address this and not sort of kick the can down the road.
So keeping that in mind, what Adam has just said, what would you, each of you personally, bank the success of, whether it's your business or business in general in the luxury sector, what would you bank the success on? Quality or quantity?
It totally depends on your business model.
Can it be both?
Because you look at a group that sells a lot of watches, and they have to have the quantity to make the money. Whereas you've got, you know,
I'm talking about in the luxury segment. So if it's luxury, yes, watches, high-end watches, quality versus quantity, because keeping in mind online, you know, this e-commerce.
If I may, there, by definition, if you're in luxury, quality is important. by definition, if you're successful, quantity is important. It's a combination of both. You need to actually get the critical mass, and because you are selling luxury, your dollar figure is higher per unit. So both, it's a combination of both. However, the success of the business, especially in luxury, is about the relationships, is about a long-term investment in that relationship, building those relationships over years and years and years. I have yet to see a successful luxury business that goes deal by deal, that snatches a deal, no matter how big or lucrative it is. Reputations are not built that way, and success isn't built that way. It's consistently delivering year in, year out, the same level of intimacy with the customer and the ability to service that customer with the product you have.
So would you say the more relationships, the better, that the focus should be growing more relationships or keeping safe just that amount of relationships? Like
Growing
just,
relationships, changing relationships over the generations, relationships change, and finally deepening those relationships. I may sell one watch a year to a customer, and if I grow that to two watches a year, I've doubled that business. It's as simple as that. But it really is an ongoing conversation we have with our customers. We know their habits, their preferences. I would know if my customer, after so many years, switched from a white car to a blue car. I need to know why. What caused that guy who bought his white cars forever and ever all of a sudden buy a blue car from me this time?
okay.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part, I think, of the industry is building relationships. And then that, but it does tie back to that whole issue of, if I'm a dealer, and I'll just say that people, want to come in and they want to buy a Submariner. Now, this is not a ridiculously expensive or rare watch, by the standards of the industry, but you can't just walk in and buy one. So I have the relationship. I need to maintain that relationship. How do I get that watch to make sure that when client X comes in, and maybe this is somebody who's bought longer from me and bought, much higher end brands, but maybe this watch for him, it's a gift for my son who's graduating from college. So I've already, my spend with you is in six figures, and here I want an $8,000 watch. Well, that should be a no-brainer, but it's not. So in order for me to have that watch on stock, that again, now I have to buy all the pieces from, brand X, let's just use Rolex as an example, that I'm going to get stuck with down the road. And so you really find yourself, I think, between a rock and a hard place. And yet to have that business in this industry, like you said, it's relationships, because you want to continue that. You want to continue building that. That's just good business. But then you get stuck. And then if you don't handle that properly, you're really stuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know how to fix that, honestly. But you three can figure that out. I'm just going to sit over here and drink my coffee.
Unfortunately, I'm on the receiving end. I don't sell goods unless you count forklifts and cranes as a luxury good. But
Oh, maybe that's on you. You have to create that.
Them, the teeth of the forklift. Yeah.
Gold
You can sell a luxury forklift. That's it's just branding.
Yeah. Diamond plated, encrusted tips.
yeah. And I think from that aspect, I'll leave it to Jacob and Co to do that, because that's what he does.
Oh, snap. We'll throw an Astro Tourbillon just, on the dashboard for the hell of it.
How many diamonds can I put, or how much jewelry can I cram into a watch and sell it and make everyone look, make a bad piece look even worse? And everyone's, the sad thing about, I shouldn't digress into this, but I can't help it. This guy, to be thought of as a watchmaker or a horologist is just annoying to me.
Zing, ouch. Don't hold back. And yes, we need to have our stances and stand by them. So that's good. Let me go to the next question now. Have you ever shopped on the gray market?
I can absolutely hand on heart
Gotta
say.
I know that's a really
do you count auction houses as gray as well?
Jonathan,
Ouch.
that's you.
Interesting question.
Yes,
Because
very.
if you count auction houses, then the answer is, for me, the answer is yes. If you count, if you say no, as in do I go to unauthorized dealers, the answer is I don't want to take that risk.
I'll say I've been tempted. Oh, go on.
I would say that the auction houses, unless it's specifically been released by a dealer or the manufacturer, then it's not going to be the grey market. It's just it's a pre-owned market. Even
Jonathan, you're right, but the question, sorry, the issue is in certain auction houses, you don't know who is the seller. You have no idea. They will, but you don't. So are you technically being involved in this? The answer could be yes, without you knowing. Or if they, I mean, and they don't. Sometimes you get watches in the wrapping. And now it could be somebody bought this watch, didn't like it. Or it could be somebody who got it as a gift and really didn't want it. Or it could be a dealer who wanted to move it. So I can't answer the question. Honestly, is knowing that, yes, this is from the gray market.
Jonathan, how would you address that? As devil's advocate, I would have to say very good point. Mishal.
Yeah,
I have one more, if I may. I have one more point. You've got geographic arbitrage. Okay? Geographic arbitrage is when you are traveling in a different geography and a watch in that geography is cheaper, even at the dealers, is cheaper than at home. I mean, it is very well known. Either he can't move it, it's expensive for that market, or simply from head office they sell same product to different markets at different profit margins. So I would go into somewhere in Eastern Europe, for example, and buy an extremely expensive watch that has no market there for it, much cheaper than I would back home, which is used to buying luxury watches generally. That is a kind of gray market. However, on the other hand, it really isn't a gray market because I'm actually walking into the official distributor of that brand in that different market and actually picking up the watch at 20, 30% lower than I would pay back home.
Okay, noted.
Good point.
Following that, by the way, sorry, Dominic, but following what Shehab said, this will not apply to the UK anymore at the end of this year. But if I buy from a dealer in Europe and I get the VAT back versus buying it from someone here where I don't get the VAT back, would you consider that as a grey market? I don't know. Question mark. Again, this would not apply to the UK after from the beginning of next year.
I think that's still under debate. They haven't made.
They haven't.
No,
I thought they had already made a decision.
They've said that they're going to reduce the blue channel, but as far as I understand, if you get what's called a C88, you can still claim the VAT back.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I think it might be a misunderstanding, but I need finer points on the law. We're actually looking into it at the moment to work out what the actual situation is.
I sincerely hope that they don't do this, because the tax refunds in the UK is much higher than that in the rest of Europe.
Yes.
So hopefully Great Britain is still in play.
Yeah, we hope. I hope.
Look, strictly as a consumer, it's tempting, and I won't lie and say that I haven't looked at certain popular gray market sites and seen deals on watches that maybe aren't popular with the rabble in the gallery, but are pieces that have individual appeal for me. But I'm always held back by the same thing that Mishal said, which was, what kind of support do I get? What a lot of people don't factor in, who are maybe, tourists in this business, so to speak, is that, maintaining a watch can be expensive. And if you're stuck with a warranty issue, and now you have to jump through X number of hoops only to find out that you're just left holding the bag. That's an expensive mistake that you're making. So in the short term, it's very tempting. And I'm a lot of things. Millionaire, unfortunately, still isn't one of them. So yeah, the whole being a millionaire by the time I'm 30, I missed that boat. Probably going to miss 50 too. So yeah, I hate to say it, to indulge in this hobby, I do have to look for the deals wherever I can. And my wife watches me like a hawk now. You know, she's on to me at this point. But at the end of the day, I just still know the long term is uncertain in terms of certain watches. So I don't want to play that game, but I don't blame the people who do. I don't. And unfortunately, though, I know folks who have been burned. And I also know folks who bought watches, great deals, like insane deals that would really curl the toes of some of the executives in these brands, and they had no problems and they're happy. But I can't afford to roll that dice.
That is, you just took the next question that I have here. Actually, is Adam.
Sorry.
Thanks for that. What do you think of? What do you think? You stay right there. What do you think of the notion of being asked or accused if you put your products on the gray market, or of having your products being put on the gray market? Is it a bad or smart thing? And Jonathan, you mentioned earlier that a brand that their reputation was destroyed. Adam, you mentioned that some people were salvaged. I know that some artists' reputations, when they sell a piece in auction, not saying it's a gray market, but the question's still there, which you still didn't answer, though, by the way, as to what differentiates the auction house from other gray markets. But an artist's name can be destroyed, if it undersells at auction and so on. So that is to say, what do you think of this notion of being asked if you sell on the gray market your pieces that don't sell? Is it smart or is it offensive?
I'll go back to what I said. Oh, yeah. I'll go back to what I said at the beginning, that if you're underselling your product, you can only be damaging your brand. You've pitched yourself at a certain level, and if you start to release those items through a secondary market at a lower price, then you can't protect the price in the primary market. So I can't see how anything being released on the grey market is going to be a healthy thing for the brand.
But some pieces actually on the gray market, if they're really desired pieces, they sell above retail price.
Well, that I hate. But
yeah, that's an extreme minority, and there's virtually no reason to do it, because if you can sell it above the retail price, then you would be better served to sell it through your retailers. And if you don't sell it through your retailers, you're doing them a huge disservice by making the extra profit yourself. So I think that would be, I would view that very dimly, personally.
By the way, Dominic, I don't want to leave the impression that I'm against auction houses. Actually, I'm all for them, because they provide a very important service both for the seller and for the buyer. There might be models that you never get an opportunity to get directly from the retailer, and will come because somebody has bought it and got sick and tired of it and wants to sell it on. So that's an opportunity that I might not be able to get under normal circumstances. Other than that, it also might be a way for someone who wants to move his without having to go through a portal and trying to establish who you are, etc., because it takes a long time. You're not talking small amounts, so there's a huge amount of trust. Utilizing an auction house is a very good way to do that, because certain credible auction houses, I need to clarify that one, will check on the watch, check on the history, check on everything, service it if need be, and then present it, to the buyer to come and buy. And that's why they charge a huge premium on this. I just didn't want to leave the idea that I think what you call it, the auction houses are doing something negative. They're not. They can. Some auction houses, sadly to say, do that. But the significant ones that we all know, I need not mention their names because they're all well known and respected. They usually, like the reseller, like the manufacturer, care about their brand so much that they will be the ones to ensure that it's cleared first before they hit any problems. So I think that they do play a very important role. Now, to what degree smaller watch auctioneers play in the gray market, that might be more of a question mark.
I think
But,
I think in actual fact you'll find that it's not the auctioneers that are partaking in the grey market now, but the how to call them, companies like Watchfinder and Watchbox and companies like that who are selling modern watches in a greater quantity. I think that's where you're going to see more grey market activity than you will see through auction, because auction is quite finite in actual fact. I mean, we don't sell a huge amount of product compared to the amount of secondary market product that is out there.
Sorry, Jonathan. When I was saying certain watch auctioneers, you have even small ones that have a very, very good reputation because that's all they do. And then you have those who have had a good reputation and went out of their way to damage them. I don't, again, without mentioning names, but I think everyone who is in the watch business will know who I'm talking about. Some of them have done an impressive amount of bad deals where they're selling things they know were not right. They know they check on this thing and they know it's not right, and yet they sell it with an idea to the customer who has absolutely no idea whether this is the case or not. And they buy it thinking, I'm banking on the auctioneer being trustworthy. Again, when you have those, you're taking a risk. But those who have a good reputation, great reputation, care about the customers. Now, again, the size doesn't matter. It's the reputation of them. So, for example, if you know that there is a small watch auctioneer in the UK that I dealt with. I won a watch from them. Before they sent it to me, they did a background check and found out this watch was stolen. They immediately refunded my money and told me we couldn't do this because the watch is stolen. Now, some auction houses, certain ones, one I can think of, and they usually are in a certain country, would have easily said, "Not my problem. Here's your watch." And I wouldn't have been the wiser. But again, you have these smaller ones who care. And this is important because the more they care about this one, the more trustworthy you have a watch auctioneer that you interact with, the more likely you're going to want to work with them. I can't begin to describe to you how many people have been taken. I'm pretty sure you know this. Everyone who's in this business, be it a seller or a buyer, who's been there for a long time, knows the one type of specific watch from a specific watch company whose dial or his inner works are changed because this one costs X, and if they do a bit of change and they look more vintage and look older, it moves up to X multiple of X, and they play with this. And if you don't know, I mean, case in point. Okay, I'm going to use an example of one because everyone and his dog would probably know this watch, and it's the Paul Newman. How many Paul Newmans are actually Paul Newman watches with the original everything? Something inside might be wrong. Something the case might be wrong. The pushers might be wrong. You don't. If you're a buyer and you don't know these things and you don't pay attention to these things, you get stuck with these things. if you don't have, and these type of watches are most likely to come either from a reputed vintage reseller, or it's going to come from an auction. It's one of the two. The first one is going to, he or she is going to sell to a specific customer base, and it's going to be very limited. The auctions are going to be sold globally. But if you at any point have a watch that has been tinkered with, and you sell it as an original, and somebody else finds out about it, you're not going to be happy with the auction house. So I think that's why I'm trying to say what you call it. It's not necessarily the size of the auction house; it's the reputation that the auction house has built over time in terms of what they are selling and how comfortable you are as either the buyer or the seller working with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for example, we have a period of time after the auction that things can be returned, which is why I know that I mean, I would hope that we have one of the best reputations out there. We do an awful lot of work, and we do checks with the grey market, the manufacturers, and everything goes through the security checks of being checked whether it's been stolen or not, just to make sure. So no, I appreciate that there are some less scrupulous auction houses that might be more involved with the grey market than we are.
Have you found out, that's actually a question for you, Jonathan, specifically, has Bonhams, or have you found out as part of Bonhams, have you found out any pieces, do you find any of your pieces that were bought from you floating around the grey market later on? Do you discover that?
Not particularly, no. I mean, once it's sold from us, then it's a legitimate sale. So if it hits any other market, it's just another resale.
I mean, yes, that's what I mean. Like, have you found someone who has legitimately bought it from you? Then have you discovered? Is there a way do you discover? I guess because the pieces are so precious, they're so expensive and so notable. Do you then discover that the buyer has resold them and it's like floating around the grey market? Is that something common, or?
Grey market, no, but certainly on the market, certainly.
Okay.
There are certain pieces that are bought from us, and they can be bought by dealers who have a specific idea that they will sell it on to somebody else. So yes, we see things reappearing quite quickly, and sometimes at a profit. Quite often they sit around for a while, and then they resell at a similar price. But yeah, it happens.
By the way, sorry, Dominic, just a point to Jonathan. If I'm not wrong, you work with Bonhams?
Yeah, I'm their global head. Yes.
In that case, please allow me to say thank you very much. The Hong Kong watch sales that you have are spot on. They are some of the nicest ones I've come across in a long time. I wish I could say the same thing about London, but I hope that improves. But Hong Kong is perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Mishal, you were on the right track. What happened there in the middle?
No. But by the way,
Hong Kong.
For a while, Bonhams was not what you call it. Forgive me for using this expression, but it was not the top dog in watch auctions. Hong Kong changed that, at least in the last couple of years. But I did manage to get a rather unique watch from yourselves, which was a horrible Patek Philippe white gold with what I can only describe as a vomit green dial, which was owned by Gaddafi. So thank you.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It has provenance, though.
Yes, and it's as ugly as you can imagine. But I love that watch.
Sounds bad, but
it's ugly. It's tremendously ugly. It's not a watch I'd ever wear, but it's a watch I want to keep.
There you go.
Historical value, we like it.
Yes. It should be in a museum one day.
Yes.
So, next question. Now, I will be able to tell your value for etiquette in this one now. Do you judge people and your snobbery? I'll be able to judge by your snobbishness by this. Do you judge people who buy on the gray market?
If it's a Mercedes-Benz car, yes.
Really?
How would you know? When the watch is on the wrist.
We read chassis numbers.
But Dominic, how would you know if it's on the gray market? Once it's on the wrist, you have no idea.
Well, I mean, I can certainly say just through my collector network, that if somebody comes at me like, oh, I'm bringing a watch out, or look what I just got, and then they say, well, I got it through like Joma's shop, or I got it through whatever.
Yes.
I just feel like, you know what, on the consumer end, we kind of have to take what we can get. And so there are certain watches, and you brought up the example of the Nautilus, which is just, it's insane now. I remember when you could buy them all day long at list price, maybe even get a couple thousand off. And now we're talking $60,000, $70,000 for a steel three-hander. It makes no sense to me. By the same token, the fact that a Royal Oak Jumbo, which I consider, to be a superior watch in many respects, including the watch that started this trend, those are still double list price now. So if I want one of those watches as a consumer and I don't want to wait, 2 years, 5 years, or potentially to never get one, what choice do I have? So I don't blame them in that instance. And then certainly there are the watches that are just being dumped. So the watches that are the opposite of the Nautilus, the opposite of these pieces that are being discounted heavily. Again, how can I blame somebody, for taking that offer? The watches exist on this platform, and the brands don't seem to know what to do with it. I can speak there. I can't, again, say names. I do know one brand that was proactively trying to find ways to maybe not negate the gray market, but actually work with the gray market. Of course, it all had to be hush hush and stuff like that. And as heretical as that sounds, I actually had a lot of respect for them to kind of acknowledge, look, this market exists. It exists because we've created the problem. So, let's try to use it for good. So I don't necessarily blame anyone. Again, we've stated before, for personal reasons, being risk-averse as I am, in spite of being broke, that I don't want to go that route. But I don't know that I can blame someone either for overpaying just to jump the line if they can afford to do it to get those pieces, or for the person who says, look, I can get up to 50% off on a watch that I personally want that maybe isn't that popular. How do I say no to that? So
but you
maybe there's a lingering distaste.
But you said, Adam, they tried to keep it hush hush. So why?
Because think about, the ramifications. If, I'm brand X and now I'm approaching certain entities and saying, look, you guys are selling a lot of gray market pieces, including other brands and ours. We're stuck with this stock. Now, maybe it's pieces they've bought back, but they still have to move them as opposed to just, melting them down or just taking them apart for parts. So kind of doing a little handshake deal and saying, look, we've got X number of pieces that we will provide to you at a certain price, and then you can sell them at your discounted price, as a way of kind of just saying, and then we're not going to penalize anybody when these watches pop up later. So like I said, I can't really say who that was, but it was something that I thought, okay, you know what? It's a monster you've created. Try to rein it in a little bit. I don't know how we're not going to get rid of the gray market. Like, that's just never going to happen. And brands are going to continue to make too many watches based on the market, and they're going to continue to hit and miss in terms of with what people want. And like you said, we can wait 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and the duds today are the desirable pieces of tomorrow, but the dealers can't wait that long. We can wait that long as a collector, but as a retailer, I'm living and dying, on a month-to-month basis. So I need to move these pieces. How do I do that? And if a brand comes to me and says, look, we're going to buy these pieces back, and the brand's able to do that because they have a conduit to maybe that part of the industry that nobody likes to talk about, well, as a retailer, you're my savior. Thank you. And not only that, I'm going to have a better feeling about you. And then hopefully, because I'm allowing this, maybe I'm still going to get some pieces from you that are going to help me continue to develop the relationships I need in order to keep feeding my family.
But then it's about, because when the brand then, concedes to the gray market in a way, whether it's hush hush or not. I mean, if it's found out, if it's discovered, then it's a tell.
Well, I don't think that it really went through, unfortunately, or fortunately for that matter. But to me, the point was more that they were actively trying to think about not only a solution to a pressing issue for them, but a way to maybe take some of the onus out of that side of the business. And I don't know if that's really possible, but you have to try, I feel like, because ultimately, like I said, it's not going anywhere. It's always going to exist.
What do the rest of you gentlemen think about Adam's point that that brand was trying to salvage and be smart, but they were compromising their integrity in a way? So I guess it's the age-old question of business. Are you going to be smart? Are you going to be true to yourself? Please.
I think, like everything in business, it's a balance you strike. You do too much of it and you destroy your own brand, and that brand is valuable. So you're actually throwing money away if you do too much of that. Now you do a bit of that, it helps the business, it helps you get product through, no one's the wiser. So there is a balance to strike, like everything in business. There is a balance to strike, and the definition of brand management is about finding that correct balance between what you permit yourself to do while at the same time still protect the value you've already built over the years in your brand.
Okay.
But there are also creative ways of dealing with it. So, for example, if you've got a product that you can't sell, it's a product, it's a design that you can't sell. But you can, for example, you can buy it back from the retailers and you can change it. It is ultimately just parts. So you've got a movement, you've got a dial, you've got hands. You can create something different out of that watch. So you don't lose the whole value of the watch by buying it back. So if the manufacturers were able to buy them back, change them up, make them into something different, then they'd be mitigating a lot of their loss, I would imagine. So I think there are other ways to deal with it. I think the grey market's quite a lazy way of dealing with it, honestly.
Spoken like a true auctioneer. Mishal, did you have any thoughts on that, or should I go to the next question?
No.
Okay. Again, Adam, you managed to burn a bit of the question, but it's fine. Okay. We seem to be telepathically in sync. Okay. But buying from, GMTA, great minds think alike. Buying from a retailer / official channels indicates the client cares about quality of procedure, respects brand values, and understands luxury. What do you think of this statement?
Not so much anymore. And I'll just start with this, that just again through my collector community and talking to people, that the whole brand experience really doesn't resonate like it used to. And again, maybe if you're kind of new and you're buying your first good watch, then you want to go into the boutique. You want the champagne as you close the deal and you get a bag and, oh, look, there's a baseball hat in here, maybe a watch box or something. But for the seasoned collectors, and increasingly that's even people who are walking in for the first time, only because we have the internet now, which has really been a game changer and kind of a double-edged sword. You know, everybody's an expert now. So they kind of want their deal. They don't want the frou-frou. You know, I was asked the other day, you know, how are brands approaching, say, Red Bar in my group, and how do people view how sales are taking place in this COVID era where you really don't have the option of going into the store and having that experience, to which, you know, I had to say, well, for most of my collectors, they didn't want that anyway. So it's really the brands having to sort of come around and figure out that the whole brand ambassador thing, all of that stuff doesn't resonate. What people want is authenticity, and then they want the best deal possible. So it's a tough road to hoe, because you do have I'm sorry, but if I'm buying a Rolex or if I'm buying an Audemars or Patek, I still want to feel like I'm being treated and respected for what I'm laying down. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to what's on my wrist. I don't know. That's something, again, I'm glad I'm not a brand that has to deal with that.
May I follow up on Adam's point and say, in all honesty, one of the best ways to get the best deal with the feeling that you have a great brand, you saved a lot of money, and you have confidence in where you got it from, seriously, out of experience, it's really hard to beat auction houses. Good auction houses give you that. Unless you have a dealer that you are so happy with, then it doesn't really matter. The pomp and ceremony don't matter, because you're talking to someone who loves what you love. When they talk to you, that's a special feeling. Again, be it whether it's a dealer, whether it's the people who are the experts, the specialists in the auction house, it's the person who's talking to you and is telling you something about something you really love. And if you have a reseller, a dealer who has several brands, it helps because it gives you options in terms of style, look, feel, price, everything. But you can also get the same thing if you don't really need to be handheld from an auction, by getting their catalog and being able to go through the myriad of choices in terms of what watches are there. Certain watches, I mean, right now, if you wanted a Breguet Tourbillon, if you went to Breguet itself and you were willing to put up, I don't know, 50, 60,000 pounds, you could get a nice new one with the hand-wind Tourbillon. You get the whole pomp and ceremony of being in there, including being ignored for the first time because they think you're not good enough to buy the watch, to be talked down by. And sad to tell you, you have dealers who actually have that, where people talk down to you.
Yeah.
It's
still
my money that you're going to get. You know, pay attention. And if you don't like it, there's a shop right next door that'll sell me something, maybe not the Breguet, but something else. Or you can go to, again, catalog, online, offline, go through the choice of watches, get the same thing you want at a better price. So it's the choice of the person and what he or she wants to experience. I agree with Adam. First time, I would say go to the dealer, because you know what you're just learning and you know what you're going to get. If you can afford it, let's face it, because you know you're going to take the hit, the financial hit.
Yeah.
But it's a feeling that I've bought something new. If you have a better understanding about what you're looking for, then you have both either seasoned resellers that you're happy with, or retailers you're happy with, and or auction houses that you're happy with. And I don't see any reason why you can't use both. I personally use both. If I can go to a dealer I'm happy with, I buy from the dealer. If I can't find the watch I want, I go to auction houses, and hopefully over time, nearly every watch that you can imagine at one point or another will be in an auction.
I mean, I guess I should have clarified that official channels also include. What I mean is that auction houses, as in
Okay.
include
Go ahead.
Bonhams and and Christie's, Sotheby's, the certified institutions, because they're institutions. That's what I meant. Versus gray market, which is, oh, the price is better, as per.
Jonathan, you're in the clear.
Sorry.
You're in the clear, Jonathan.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was going to say. I think the actual that we
By the
supply-
way, Dominic, I noticed you didn't mention a couple of well-known auction houses.
There was
Who's-
no for that.
who every time they sell, you kind of wonder who's the buyer, because I can't see who the buyer would be for the watches in terms of the pricing.
Well,
But
unless
I will leave that to you to decide.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it was a subconscious thing. Oh, yeah. Mishal, you're not allowed to turn the tables on me. I'm the devil's
Fine.
advocate here. I'm the devil's advocate. So I will think about that, though, and I'll ask myself later on in private, Dom, why?
why?
Okay, so that's that. Does anyone have anything else to add before I ask the final doozy?
Oh boy.
Drum roll.
Yeah, get ready, guys.
Okay, if your friend, okay, your best friend,
No, we won't turn them in.
I might.
if your
There's something
friend
in it for me.
gave you a gift that you discovered later by accident, you weren't supposed to find out, was bought off the gray market, would this impact how you feel about that gift? And your friend, maybe, but primarily the gift.
Hmm.
I would think, depending on what the watch is, it's the thought that counts.
Ah, that is a kind thing to say and appreciative.
It just depends. If it's a really valuable watch and really nice, I encourage it. If it's something I can get from, down the high street, I'd say, how dare you actually give me a gray market watch when it's available at the store?
Yeah.
I'm more along the lines that I didn't pay for it, so hey, great.
I really don't have people giving me watches, so just right off the bat, I'm kind of on your team. Like, thank you. But to the brands that might be watching, it's like they're dead to me. I'll never talk to them again. Here's the thing. Like, if it's my mom who like talked to a person who talked to a person and was like, well, look, Adam, I found this watch. I know you like watches and I got a great deal. Like, well, then first of all, you're my mom. So no matter what, I have to be nice to you. And then secondly, I understand because you're not coming at it from an informed standpoint. Now, if it's my friend, apparently a wealthy friend who really likes me to give me a watch, and then they know the game. I guess part of me would be like, well, come on, guy, are we really supporting this? But the other part of me is like, well, but they knew and they got the best deal they could get because unfortunately the gray market exists. But I will say that the second I have a problem with that watch, you better go and fix it, buddy. This is a long-term investment in my happiness that you just made. So as long as you're ready to assume the cost there, then we're friends.
May I suggest this idea? If someone does that to you, and it is an expensive watch, and just for the hell of it, while you're walking with your friend who gave you that watch, walk into the dealership with him with that watch, give it to the retailer. Could you get this fixed for me? Just watch the space.
Let's go for a walk.
You might lose him as a friend, but hey, it'd be funny as hell.
Well, I
haven't registered it yet. Yeah, let me go and register the warranty. Come with me.
I will tell you a quick story that actually happened in real life to me. My friend had gotten a gift from her boyfriend. He was an elder gentleman boyfriend. He gave her a Alangensen
I like
moon,
this.
moon face, and
Nice
it
choice.
had several different complications on it. And so the dial, there was something wrong with the dial. So she gave it to me to take to SWS, Swiss Watch Services here in Dubai. And he had given it to her in America, keep in mind. And so I went and I gave it to SWS Services. I went upstairs to my office, and then after 5 minutes, I got a phone call from them. They said, "Oh, please come downstairs and collect the watch." So I thought, okay, great. They've already, how quickly have they managed to evaluate what's wrong with it and the cost? I go down. The receptionist is dangling it between two fingers, and she says, "Here you go." And so I just take it, from her and say yes. And she goes, "I'm sorry, we cannot repair fakes." So,
Wow. And you're the one who was, branded with the scarlet letter
she was
there.
giving me the side eye, and she was like,
and holding a dead fish out for you. Please. Like that. Wow.
She wasn't literally doing that, but you could tell she just didn't want to be anywhere. It was radioactive, basically, in her hand. And so I just said, "Oh my gosh, I swear it's not mine. I swear." She's like, "Yeah, sure, babe.
It isn't.
Sure, babe."
Dominic, could you continue the story? Because I'm dying to see what happened with your friend and her quote-unquote elderly boyfriend.
Gentleman caller. Well, she called him no more. She did not let him call her anymore. I told her, I said, "Oh my gosh, girl, this is the news I got," and she was very upset. And she has not spoken to him since. But she had, anyways, called things off. So I don't know.
He died in old age, miserable and lonely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what you get.
It's a
It could
given.
be a lesson to all you sugar daddies out there.
Yes. And
Only legitimate watches.
Yeah, she also learned her lesson about sugar daddies. So luckily, everyone walked away with something.
I just say that with jealousy because nobody wants to support me. Yeah, that ship has sailed. So, but I'm still
Adam, I'm sure your wife would disagree on that point. But
she's the first one, pimping me out there, putting me in tight clothes. Come on, earn your keep around here, buddy. So she's a very practical woman.
Yes. And Jonathan, you didn't answer because I know I could feel the snobbery coming off of you, and I saw your eyebrows raised, like friends giving a gift bought off the grey market.
I'd love people to give me watches, and I would not look a gift horse in the mouth at all.
Where are these people? Well, we heard of one of them. It didn't work out so well, but I want to meet these guys.
Want to meet these guys? Well,
I can create a website for wealthy older men who want to gift younger men watches.
Giftwatch.com.
Yeah. I'll be seen with you. I'll be a little arm candy.
I hope the next time you decide to go shopping, this conversation, reverberates in your mind, and you think about it. Think about the things that we learned about each other. Because the important thing is that it's learning from each other's habits. And that's what reminds us of who we are and our values at our core and what matters to us in terms of, because our behavior reflects who we are. So I'm so glad at the insight you've all shared. Some of you surprised me. I'm not judgmental, not to say I'm devil's advocate, devil's advocate. So I'm here to present the hard side. And I have to admit, you all made my job difficult today because you were very, very blunt and straightforward. And I really appreciated that. So thank you.
Before we go, Jonathan, I'm looking forward. I promise you, I'm looking forward to your next Hong Kong watch sale. And I hope there will be some really nice choice pieces.
Yeah.
Not the London one.
Yeah.
Not the London one. No, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, but the Hong Kong one is spot on.
I shall have to change your mind. So you can
I'm looking forward.
apply from
I'm
us.
looking forward to that.
Good.
Well, again, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm sorry that we couldn't do this in person, but hopefully by next year, maybe we'll find a way to be sitting in the same space. And I promise no Jacob and Co. on my wrist.
I might do it just for fun.
And Dominic, thank you so much for moderating.
Thank you,
You did a
everyone.
wonderful job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
you. Take care and see you. Take care.